Hello everyone, Tasneem here. Today we are focusing on vintage roses. As you can see, this set has some outlines that shows you the layers that work together. With this kind of multi-step stamp sets, I would normally stamp the lightest layer first. However, with this particular set, I found that stamping the darkest layer gives me the best results. Let me show you with this first flower that has 3 layers. So first I'm stamping the darkest layer. Here is the second layer in a slightly lighter ink, and I'm trying to match and align these two areas. And finally, I have the lightest layer. Notice how you can clearly see the other layers through the base layer. Now I'll stamp these 4-step rows. And once again, I'm starting with the darkest layer. Now this particular rose was a little tricky for me to get at first, so here are some of the tips. Between the first and second layer, I try to match the little notch in the middle, which is present in both layers. For the third layer, I'll be aligning the matching side line from the previous layer. As for the base, which is in the lightest color, it's pretty easy to align, as by this time you can almost picture the whole rose. Let's move on to the next 4-layer rows. And just like before, I'll start by stamping the darkest layer. For the second layer, I'll be aligning those empty spaces which I just pointed with my pencil. And you can see those empty spaces in the second layer. And for the third layer, I'll be aligning the left side of the petal, just the base. With this layer, the rose has pretty much taken its shape. The final layer will just add a few highlights in the back. And as you can see, it is very easy to align. Now I'll stamp the smallest 3-layer rose, and just like before, I'm starting with the darkest layer. For the second layer, I'll be aligning those 2 points, and as you can see, it's very easy to see through because I already have the darkest layer first and I'm stamping with a lighter ink. And here comes the base layer. And it's done. And finally, we have one more 4 layers rose. Here's the darkest layer. For the next one, I will align that empty space which both layer has. And the next 2 layers are very easy. We'll just be aligning the petal that's on the right side. Now you can almost see the flower is taking its shape. And that concludes all 5 roses. Now I'll stamp a couple of leaves. All the leaves come in 3 layers, so it's quite straightforward. And just like the roses, I will start by stamping the darkest layer, and then the medium, notice how you can clearly see the dark layer through the medium one. And finally, I'll stamp the lightest layer. Here's another example. So using this technique, even the thinnest lines can be aligned perfectly. You can start by stamping the darkest layer for all the individual leaves, except for this cluster of leaves, which, well, you'll have to start by stamping it in the lightest ink first. And then align the two detail layers afterwards. I like to use a Stamp-A-Magic for these steps to get the best results, as it helps me align the detail layers perfectly. And this way I continue with the other leaves. As you can see, that particular leaf matches with the one I'm pointing with my pencil, and the small one there is right up there on the upper right corner. And that left bottom is right here. Now I'll show you how to use one ink with the generation stamping to stamp these roses. I have a scratch paper here to stamp off for generation stamping. So I start with my darkest layer and stamp it directly after inking it. For the second layer, I will first stamp it off on the scratch paper and then stamp it on my flower as a second generation. And for the third layer, I'll stamp it twice on my scratch paper, and therefore I'll get a third generation when I'm stamping it on my flower. You can save and print this guide from the Vintage Rose product page. The color code shows you the areas to align between the layers. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!